Last year I was on brand. The theme color last year was bright orange, and I was on brand. Show of hands, who was here last year? All right, cool. I'm not going to use the same jokes then. Anyway, Robbie Hunter-Paul. We've been having a joke about that because it's a double-barreled name, right? And for those of you that were here last year, you'll remember that I'm an ex-rugby player. You can tell from the accent I'm not from around here. I'm from Glasgow, right? No, I'm a little bit further south of Glasgow. From New Zealand. Come over to play rugby. And if you followed rugby during the noughties, the 90s, noughties, that's probably, we'll leave it at that. I retired in 2011, so the 90s and noughties, you may have remembered me. I just used to be Robbie Paul. But the Hunter came up because I got married to a girl from the north of England. And it's quite a funny story because people say, well, why did you take that? Why did you break tradition and do that? And I said, well, the story goes, there's me and another couple of my teammates, and we're all talking about marrying our girls. Shantane Hape was another one of my teammates from the Bradford Bulls. He's New Zealand Māori. His girlfriend at the time was New Zealand Māori, and Leslie Vainikola, whose girlfriend was Tongan. And so, you know, as hyper-masculine men we were during the 90s and early noughties, we said to each other, you know what we should do? We should lay down the law. Let the ladies know exactly what we'll expect of them. We'll provide for them, but they've got to know what we'll expect from them. So Shantane stepped up and he had a word to Liana, his missus, and he said to her, look, you know, I expect X, Y, and Z, house cleaned, cooked, food cooked, me looked after, all the clothes, you know, washed and dried. Thing. First day with Shantane and Liana, the first day, bang on. Liana's a good Māori girl, brought up in that cultural pit down under called New Zealand. She understood the rules. House was immaculate. First day, that's what he saw. Leslie steps up. Sienna, his girlfriend at the time, says to her, okay, this is what I expect it to be. Clothes cooked, food cooked, clothes cleaned, everything sorted out, house spotless, kids looked after. First day, didn't see much. Second day, boom, it all fell into place after giving her a few looks. Good, you know, Tongan girl, brought up in the church, understood it, knew her place. Me, I married a girl from the north of England, did the same thing, laid down the law. First day, didn't see anything. Second day, still didn't see anything. But on the third day, the swelling started to come down. I could just see out of my right eye. Hunter-Paul. Might have been a different conversation, if her name had been like Pumpernickel or something like that. But I'm a modern man. I embraced it. And she wasn't going to be defined by my rugby. So that's why her name goes first as well. We say, shouldn't it be Robbie Paul Hunter? No. And I tell you what, because people are lazy or printouts don't work the way they should do, sometimes, every now and again I get, is there a Mr. Robbie Hunter here? A Mr. Robbie Hunter, and I die a little bit on the inside. My identity is just ripped away from me. Okay, we're going to talk, this is about you guys. This is really about you guys. This is about us and the world in which we live in, and because it isn't easy. We are dealing with a lot of stress, especially in your industry sectors. I mean, I'm preaching to the converted, right? Raise your hands if I'm preaching to the converted. This can be a very stressful industry, yes? I know it is, right? So what we're going to do, we're going to talk today about stress and coping. All right, I'm right in the middle of it. I'm going to move about, okay? Stress and coping and managing those moments. What I like to do is leave you with a couple of takeaways. There's going to be a couple of takeaways that you guys can put into action as soon as you leave it. One you can put into action while you're sitting here, and another one you'll be able to put into action maybe tonight or when you get home, but I'll explain it as we go along. Stress and coping. Our partners, COEO. So we're delivering mental health workshops for the COEO team. We're also going to be working with an exclusive group of COEO for just their executive teams to help them manage the many spinning plates that they have. As an offer, and this is probably something you need to, if you're a partner of COEO, we'll also come out and deliver a presentation on mental well-being for you guys as well. So feel free to get in touch with COEO if you think that might be for you guys. Today's overview. So we're just going to talk about understanding stress, why we have it, why stress is there in the first place, how stress can impact us, and what we can do to manage it and de-stress. So that's where those two takeaways really do come in, but there's a bunch of other takeaways that you'll be able to give it some concerted thought as well. First up, how we're wired. So this is if you remembered last year, I just talked a little bit about how the brain's wired. So I spoke about the chimp paradox, and Professor Steve Peters, he breaks down the brain into 3 really easy to manage segments when it comes to things like stress management, anxiety management, how we're motivated, et cetera, et cetera. The first aspect of the brain, he breaks into 3 parts. The first aspect of the brain is the human, the rational human. Pretty much probably what you're listening to me. Some of you, the ladies might have been just tiptoeing into the chimp when I was talking about that very, clean and cook and clean, that sort of thing. It might have been starting to bubble up, but in this aspect of the chat, you're using your rational human brain to listen to me right now. Consorted, it thinks things out and in a very rational way. The other thing is the computer. For those of you who got on a train, you didn't have to think about every step that you took. For those of you that drove here, you don't really need to think about putting the gear into 1, 2, or 3 anymore. Everything's just automated, and that's the computer. The human and the chimp is the leader that creates the computing for the computer. Does all the software writing. So we use the chimp, will help us with the computer, and the human creates a computer. But that's how we're wired ultimately. Now when it comes to stress, the chimp, can you see it getting bigger? That's the thing that basically where that operates. Now, everyone hold up their hand. We're going to do a quick, want to create a quick model that anyone can use at any time just to explain their brain. You think of your arm as your spinal cord. This is the superhighway that your brain sends out all the signals up and down to the brain and back out of the brain for any type of signal, right? It's the superhighway. At the top of that superhighway is this thing called the limbic system, all the chimp, all the reptilian brain, no matter which we want to. So just cross that over. That's our reptilian brain. That's the thing that's responsible for all of our emotions, all of our memories, all of our anxieties, all of our stresses, adrenaline, cortisol, serotonin, dopamine. It all comes from this area. It's a hugely, immensely powerful part of the brain. Now lap your fingers over and just think of it, thumb underneath. I'm just looking at you there. Thumb underneath and lap your fingers over. Think of your front of your fingers as the frontal cortex, the rational human. The cortex that wraps around the limbic system is more the rational human, but the frontal one is really the decision-making part of the brain at that point in time. So if anyone's trying to think about it, when you think about it in this context, ultimately what we want the 2 things doing, your limbic system and your frontal cortex, as much as possible, integrating with one another. So these 2 things are talking to each other. Because if they don't talk to each other, then often this thing takes control. And this is where we get too stressed, or we yell and we shout, and we break down relationships, and we break down work colleagues, and we break down ourselves, and we leave ourselves thinking, why did I react like that? Why did I overreact? Well, the limbic system's responsible for that part of the brain. So it's just a cute little thing that you can share with kids or each other, just to say, actually, when you start thinking about it, the more you can think about that, the limbic system, the chimp, taking control, the more you can manage it. So start to actively think about that aspect of the brain. Okay, moving forward. We've got a countdown somewhere, haven't we? I was given, what was it, an hour and 20 minutes? Was that right? 10 minutes. 10 minutes, okay. So you said 10, I heard an hour and 15. What is stress? Stress is the body's natural response to challenges or demands. It's not necessarily a bad thing. Fight, flight, or freeze. When there's a stressor in our life, we're ultimately the limbic system, the thumb, it kicks off and it does one of these three things: fight, flight, or freeze. We either want to get away with it, or we'll stop, or we'll put up the dukes and we'll dig ourselves into that corner that we've been confronted with and we'll explode outwards. Now, these aren't necessarily a bad things, and they're the reason why we're actually here, all here in this room, because our ancestors used these three things throughout history, all those hundreds of thousands of years ago that got you to this point today. It's not necessarily a bad thing. It becomes a bad thing if we stay in one of these states. It's an automated response. It's an automated response we developed over millions of years that prepared our ancestors to either fight or flee danger quickly. So just again, that limbic system that's responsible for it, this is the thing that come out of the primordial slime and goo. So reptilians all creatures that have survived this long have got this, and it's an instinctive thing, and it's a thing that's really responsible for like adrenaline. Get away, fight hard. When stress becomes a problem, stress is a problem when we stay in that state for too long. Because interestingly, in the limbic system, things that are responsible for the stress part of the brain that excretes cortisol and excretes the chemicals that we don't need too much of in today's modern society, they can swell and become oversensitive. And when they become oversensitive, it excretes more of those chemicals into our body until it's just so sensitive that we find ourselves in mental illness. And that when it becomes a real problem. So, how can we deal with it? So this is the first takeaway I'm going to offer to you guys today. The physiological sigh. Has anyone heard of that before? Anyone? No? So, you know when you're fed up, when you really had a tough day, and you're fed up, what do? Well, other than swear and kick the cat and stuff like that. You go, right? We all done that. We all do that. That is a physiological sigh. So what's the science that's going on right there is your body's regulating itself. So whatever you're dealing with, whatever you're stressed with, you've got a heightened heart rate. Your heart rate's starting to pump. It's starting to have an impact on that part of the brain that's squirting out stresses and the cortisol chemical. And what you're doing there with that physiological sigh is you're bringing your heart rate down and you're controlling. There's very few things that we can actively do in real time to calm ourselves. Very few things. This is one of them. So we're going to go for an exercise here. You don't have to get out of your seats. But the physiological sigh is basically 2 deep breaths in and 1 slow breath out. But it's done in a very kind of funny way. So it's in through the nose. Once you get to the top of that first deep breath, take another deep breath. So it's like this. Okay? It's and then out slowly. See how I purse my lips a little bit? Purse them out like as if I was blowing a trumpet. That means that the air's not going to escape too quickly. We want to slow that down. And what that does has an impact on the vagus nerve. The vagus nerve comes out of the medulla, which sits right underneath the limbic system, and it goes down into your brain and goes directly to your heart. And it slows your heart down. And when your heart slows down, everything calms down. So let's practice that. Let's try that together, eh? Here's the exercise. We're all in this together. And then there's no excuse as to why when you start to feel the limbic season, the limbic system and the chimp start to take control, that you can't do something in real time about it. Be under no illusion. Me and our lass, me and my wife from Dewsbury walk around the house like this. But it's done wonders. It really has done wonders for our relationship. There's 2 things, and I'll come to it at the end of it. So let's do it together. 1 deep breath in through the nose, then a full breath in because it just expands all your alveoli in your lungs, and then a slow breath out. Okay, we're going to do it together. Count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Now, you only need to do that 2, maximum 3 times. 2 or maximum of 3 times, and your heart rate will slow down. So you probably will only have to do it once. Once you get into the habit of doing it, you only have to do it once. Now, the good thing about this is when you identify that you need it, you're starting to do that integration, aren't you? It's the rational human taking control again of the chimp. And the chimp is so powerful, but we're asking it to calm down. It's more of that integration of those two. When you start to master these 2 elements, you will really become a mindfulness ninja. So, you've got that as your first take home today. We've got another one. There's another one coming. So at any time, anyone says something, someone cuts you off in traffic, anytime you can use that. I often use it just so I check in on myself. Okay, I'm feeling a bit angsty here. I might have been thinking about a couple of emails, too many emails, not had a chance to reframe it. And I can do it now. I can do it undercover. It doesn't have to be as obvious as what I know. I play a lot of golf. You'll see me doing it a lot on the golf course. Okay, moving on. Common sources of stress. We all know these ones. So, work-related stress, probably one of the reasons why we're here. Look, I'm of the mindset that our mind and our well-being is our own responsibility. We've got to take real responsibility for that. I do a talk, a commercial, like a corporate talk on the 4 attributes of success. And the first one's attitude, and there's sacrifice as well. You've got to make sacrifice. You've got to evolve. But one of those key elements is responsibility. You've got to accept responsibility. So for me, what can we do? By putting a toolkit of well-being things behind us, like what we would do for our physical health, do it for our mental health as well. So you've got one tool now, which is the physiological side. So common sources of stress, work-related, life changes, moving house is a challenge. People break up around you. That can be a challenge. That can put stress. You know, your best friends break up. That puts stress on your family because which do we go with the husband? Do we go with the wives? Do we go with them both? It just gets awkward, right? Life changes happen. Relationships, you could be in that. You could be in that other couple. Health-related, diagnosed with some sickness. Family member diagnosed with sickness, cancer, type 2 diabetes, cognitive diseases, you name it. Environmental, and just daily hassle. You know, sometimes the grind can get to you. But they are common sources of stress. Okay. There's a little video called the Stress Bucket.
What is stress? It's the physical and the mental changes we experience as a result of the demands placed on us in day-to-day life. So what does a bucket have to do with stress? The stress bucket represents our capacity to cope with stress, and the water level is the stress load. The more demands or stresses there are in our life, the higher the water level, and we feel stressed. Let's look at the different types of stress. There are the stressors that we choose, such as moving house, starting a new job, or going on holiday. And while mostly a source of joy and comfort, family, friends, and relationships can also place us under stress. Work stress is a common problem and can include workload, flexibility, and personal relationships in the workplace. And we all understand the financial demands of having a mortgage, bills to pay, and family to support. We can also get stressed from our environment, including what we see in the media, our neighbours, and even the weather. Plus, sometimes we hold attitudes and make lifestyle choices that add to our stress. And when the demands or stressors become too much, the bucket overflows and we can't cope. There are, however, ways to make sure your stress bucket doesn't overflow. You can reduce the amount of stress in your bucket by making choices, problem solving, or asking for support. And you can grow the size of your bucket by building your resilience and skills level in coping with stress. Remember, your thoughts, body, and feelings are all connected. So if you go for a walk or visit a friend, even when you don't really feel like it, you may end up feeling better able to manage. But be aware, some short-term fixes to stress really make it much harder in the long run. We all carry our own size of stress bucket. Some buckets are larger than others. But what matters is that you can carry your own bucket comfortably without spilling a drop.
So that's the only Aussie accent you're going to have to listen to today. I'm a Kiwi, by the way, just so there's no confusion. The stress bucket. So we all have our own stress buckets. This is obviously one of the council's green bins. Managing our own stress through nutrition, family, lack of sleep. These are the things that will often go into the bucket. If we're not eating the right foods, there's not clear communication with our families. It could be a kid, a teenager that's stressing us out, or it could be relationship problem. Lack of sleep. Sleep is really a big one. Who struggles with their sleep here? Put your hands up. There's generally in every room of business people, yes. There's people where they've got too much mind traffic going on and stuff like that. But sleep, one of the programs that we do is we deal with sleep and creating little nests in our room and what do and not to do. Modern living is catching up with us and having an impact on that. So lack of sleep has a big impact on your stress levels. Work stress, as we've spoken about, training, relationships, finances. One of my staff is in the back there. Don't you answer this one. They all go into the stress bucket, and we've got to figure out a way to release that stress. The physiological side, when too many of these things, there's some things that we can deal with right there and then. But if we don't deal with them, the cortisol levels stay high, and our heart rate stays high, and we keep asking more of that system in our brain. So physiological side, breathe it out. Bring yourself back to zero. Empty the bucket. It's almost what we're doing there. We're turning on the tap. And we're releasing some of that stress, right? We're not letting that layer cake happen where that one email is a straw that breaks the camel's back. Yoga, meditation, rest and relaxation, we'll get to that. Dealing with stress, negative ways of dealing with stress, that's very common to all of us. De-stress is going, have a few beers. We were talking about our lunchtime. Those who've ever used Whoop Band, you see what your body goes through cleaning out alcohol. It's a poor coping mechanism. Don't get me wrong, it's a coping mechanism. It's part of our culture, it's part of our life, but it has a time and place. And probably this as a tool for de-stressing is probably the wrong tool. No problem using it as a social lubricant to enjoy yourself, but using it as a specific tool to de-stress is probably not the greatest idea because of what it does. Overworking, more often than not, that's not going to be the answer to your problems by keeping at it, and just burning yourself out. Again, that layer cake in the brain, what's going on? I haven't hit that deadline, I haven't hit that, going again. You're just breaking down the tool that you use to get all your work done and get paid in the first place. That's your mind and your body. Chasing perfection, another one that hits a lot of people down. It's got to be perfect. It's got to be perfect. Does it really have to be perfect? Don't be too dogged on absolutely everything. Bottling up your feelings. Ladies do it better than blokes, but blokes, we're going to make a change. Especially now that you've heard this, we're going to make a change, aren't we? Start to talk things out. Someone that we know and we trust, and start to talk things out. Ladies, continue to do what you do. If you don't do it, then start doing it more. Talk things out. Talk more, play better. Too much screen time. That's directly impacts our modern way of life. Who takes their phone into their bedroom at night? Hands up. Okay. And probably the same people very much the same people are having sleep issues at night as well, right? Too much screen time. Just think about it. What's it doing? These tools are made. I've got another company, a digital marketing company. My job as a digital marketer is to keep you in that device. Be under no illusion. Emails, social media, looking at that, wow, that dickhead friend posted that again. Oh my God. Then posting to you, cortisol, dopamine, it's going, you're on, you're never giving yourself a break, it's on, it's on, it's on. Before modernity happened, before we had smart devices, we used to just sit there, didn't we? and just be calm and recharge our batteries. More fools are us. But this is what it's doing to us. So we just got to be mindful of it. Proven strategies, gratitude. Be thankful for what we have. Talk about it. In this context, so in the limbic system, there's the amygdala. It spends 2/3 of its energy purely and simply on negativity. So it loves negative. That's why every news headline you ever read is negative. Why? Because it'll get you clicking. It's clickbait. It's fear. It's built on fear. It's a survival mechanism. They know the way the brain works. So what you've got to do is create your own algorithm and immerse yourself in positivity. Put posters up around the room. Start following more positive, the power of positivity social media things. Click on them constantly so you get that coming up in your algorithm. So you're reminding yourself and immersing yourself in stuff that feeds your soul and doesn't take from it. Writing down emotions, great way of wiring new neural pathways. We're talking about creating new, coming away from the stressful neural pathways and creating new neural pathways. Take home, you get 3 take home today. This second take home, there's no picture for it, I should have put it in, but the brain is plastic for your entire life. For your entire life, you can create new neural pathways. Not just when you're a teenager and when you're in your 20s, when you're an adolescent. You can create new neural pathways for your entire life. So if you're feeling shitty now, you can make it better. It can get better. It can get better. The science proves that you can create new neural pathways. And this helps. Writing down these emotions helps you get them cleared away, and you can create new ones by visualizing them and physically manifesting them. Reading, another great one. Food for the brain. Put down the device, pick up a book. They're the two opposites. Device with short form content that 15 seconds long, and scroll again, scroll again. It's munching on your concentration levels. And what's the opposite of that? Reading books, ebooks, whatever. Reading long form content. That's food for your brain. So reading. Nature. Get back out to nature and be present. Stop thinking about the email. Put it all down. Get out there. Get light, sunlight in your eyes. Fix up your internal clock. Get back to nature. Be present. Look at everything and feed your soul. Positive coping tools. Exercise. Number 1. It's free. We can all exercise. Go for a walk. Do whatever. It's hard. Don't get me wrong. It takes effort, but it's the number 1. Exercise. Donating time, being a part of something bigger than yourself, giving. Tim and I were talking about this, being the ability to give, whether it's just your time or money or whatever, being a part of something else helps feed your soul as well. Learning in new school, lifetime of learning. If I remember the attitude, responsibility, sacrifice, and evolving, learning, you must evolve. Everything's moving quickly, right? But in this context of de-stressing, I would say, learn something that feeds your soul. During lockdown, I learned how to play the ukulele. Bad. I know how to play 2 Bob Marley songs terribly, but I know how to do them now. Learn how to play the ukulele and read sheet music as well. That was an interesting thing. Sharing your feelings, staying connected with people, talking to one another. Talk it out. We've got to talk it out. And switching off, being present, listen to some music, be mindful. Now, these are actually your 5 ways to well-being. Exercise, giving, learning, connecting, and being mindful. These are identified by the NHS as 5 active tools that you can use to make yourself the best version of yourself. All right. The final takeaway and the final slide I'm going to share with you guys today. Increasing your stress threshold. So when we get overstressed, we can get to that point where every little thing just fires us up and makes us explode. Well, this is a tool promoted by Andrew Huberman. I don't know if any of you watch podcasts on well-being, but Andrew Huberman's one of the top leaders in that space. And this is a stress tool there to increase your stress threshold. Deliberate cold exposure. So none of the things that I've shared with you today, I don't do myself. So I've been doing this since the beginning of the year. There's a number of different reasons why cold exposure works, and this is backed up by science as well. Dopamine releases, serotonin releases, the calming aspect. The dopamine release that you get from cold exposure goes up, but it drips off slowly, so you feel better for longer. From a stress threshold point of view, what you're doing is you're teaching yourself, you're using an actual tool to put yourself into stress, and you deal with it rationally, psychologically, you're dealing with it. So this is how I've gone about doing it. So I'm going to give you my playbook. So who uses an electric toothbrush? Put your hand up. Does it have the 2-minute timer on it? All right, so I get up with the kids, sort everything out in the morning, and the first thing that I do is I get my toothbrush, I turn the shower on cold, turn the shower on, put my tooth, and I back into it. I stand there. And, when I first started doing this back in the last year, it was horrible. I'm not going to lie. But it was directly putting myself into stress. Now, it's not so horrible. I've learned to deal with it. It's still a shock. Those first 30 seconds especially to 40 seconds, yeah. I'm like, oh, come on. It gives me a 30-second buzz every time, and that first 30 a minute couldn't come fast enough, but it doesn't. It takes forever, right? Because you want it to. But back into it and brush my teeth. And what I realized that it's had that knock-on effect. So I knew that it had the ability to expand and increase the stress threshold. I'm not as explosive as I once was. I am using a bunch of other tools and tips and tricks, as well as like the physiological sigh. But it does work, and it's backed up by science. So that's another takeaway that you might want to try tonight if you're stopping over, or tomorrow morning when you get up. There is another little tip and trick that I will do, but you try it over 21 days. Google Andrew Huberman's 21-day program, and then check that out. All right? So that's it. 3 takeaways. I can't even remember what that middle one. Oh, brain plasticity, right? So no matter what, no matter how old we are, we can learn. So it can get better. We can change our neuro pathways in our brain. So that's awesome. So physiological sigh. Back yourself into the cold, and we can be better. It can get better. Thank you very much.
Well done.